Hey folks, and welcome to Crazy Gamer Models. I am the Crazy Gamer and I do models. So here we go. Kit review. This was possibly done before on the channel, but I didn't like the results, so I'm going to do a slight redo and I'm going to do it slightly different. This one's going to be, it's another Panther, of course, because, you know, we got to do Panther tanks because I love Panther tanks. And it's a Takom kit. I love my Takom kits. I love my full interiors. And this one's going to be a mid to early production. It is kit number 2098. It is 1/35th scale. And as I said before, it is made by Takom. It is designed by T-Rex Studios in China. So as you can see, it's one of their newer releases of the kit. It does not have Zimmerit on it. It has length track. You use a jig to assemble the tracks, and my box is a little damaged here. Here is some markings on the tank. You have your well, those actually have Zimmerit on it. Oh, this tank actually has Zimmerit on it in the pictures. I'm not sure if it does have Zimmerit. Now I'm confused. It may have Zimmerit. Look at that. Already confused. So we have our sprue layout. You know, it's pretty cool. Little Amazon Q code. And again, it's kit 2098. And let's take a look inside. As with all Takom Panther kits, it's one of their smaller Panther boxes. But the box is packed full of sprues. I mean, there is 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23 sprues, not including the hull. And no, it does not have Zimmerit. That is strange how the picture on the box shows Zimmerit and it does not have Zimmerit. But you can always get external Zimmerit or make your own Zimmerit. Maybe this is a project you want to practice your Zimmerit building on. So this may be the kit for you. So I'm going to come in here and we're going to come to right about there. And I'm hoping this nice background here is not going to cause too many issues with the lighting. And we are going to take the sprues out of the bag, because that's why we're redoing the video, because you didn't get to see the sprues. And the Panther tank is a World War II German tank. It was their medium battle tank, even though it was super heavy. So this is your A sprue. Let's see how this is going to look here. So this is your A sprue here, and as you can see, it is, let's try a little bit more, there we go. And as you can see, move it around, you can see the details. And it is your A sprue. So there's two of these sprues. As you can see, right here is the second one. We don't need to see that. And then now we have our D and our E sprue. So we have D up here, and we have E right here. And the A sprue, of course, is the wheels. You gotta love wheels. If you love or Panther tanks, you gotta love the wheels. Your D sprue is gonna have your drive sprockets, your suspension arms, and E is going to have your torsion bars, plus your MG bags, your grease points for your torsion bars, some stowage boxes that are side molded, so a little side mold on there. And we got our periscopes on here for our vision blocks, however you want to call them. They are not clear. Is one of the sides to the Panther tanks. The vision blocks are not clear. We have some nice seat detail with some spring detail on the back. pick that up with nice copper color with a dry brush. Get that spring look. We have a hydraulic cylinder, a suspension cylinder, and a battery and part of the coolant system. So that is the D and the E sprue. So next up we have the T sprue. Now I normally point out what is common to all the Panther kits from Takom, and the last three sprues, they are common to all Panther kits. And what is different between your different models is like this sprue, the S sprue. This is going to be in your mid to early boxes, and as you can see here, there is some nice detail on these hatch covers. As you can see there, I can actually pick up the detail, and even on the engine hatch cover there is some nice rolled texture detail on there. So, and even on the exhaust port, the exhaust covers, we got some nice molded detail on those, and they are also molded in your headlight, and that's a piece I'm not familiar with. And you have some of your lower side skirt for your upper hull. You have some fenders, your rear stowage, which if you are zimmerating, they would get zimmered. And then you have the sides of your hull. It is a three-piece hull. It is not a bathtub style hull. So let us take a look at the T sprue, which is this bottom half. And then we have the S sprue, which is the upper half. So that is that. Now another common sprue to the Panthers that have turrets, your A's anyways, is the B sprue, which is your ammunition. As you can see here, we'll put that like that. And as you can see, it is 96 rounds of ammunition. And I'm already seeing some serious mold line, parting line, witness marks. Let's see if we can show this here. And right there, you can see it right in there is a mark on every one of these. So, either they're going to have to hide that or clean them up, and they are small. You're not going to be able to clean them up on the sprue very easily. And I have to say, this sprue connection point right here, this little connection point right here, can be a bit of a pain in the butt. But that is the B sprue, your ammunition. They go in racks on the wall. Because your bins have a little bit of different design. So that is your B sprue. Now we have a U sprue, which is common, is in some of the Panther tanks. There are other sprues similar to this one that are in some of the other kits. So let us see here. We have a damaged part right here. Right away we can see that this is damaged. It shouldn't be no problem to fix with those spots for the driver and radio operator's hatch. Wow, that is like majorly bent in there, so I have to make sure we take care with that when we put it back in. A little bit of nice texture on these pieces, doesn't look too bad. These skirts don't look bad. They are overlapping, so cutting them so you have separate individual pieces could prove difficult. This is some nice detail in here. is these little wing nut bolts for these rack pieces, and it does have the molded on tool clamps. If you watch my videos, I'm not a fan of those, but there are aftermarket solutions for that. So this would be our damaged U-sprue. If you guys have this kit, let me know if your U-sprue has damage, because I wonder if it's how they stack the sprues in the package. So now we have the G-sprue, which is common to turreted Panthers. It is going to contain your turret floor. Basically your turret floor. Let's get a good look at it here. Come in a little bit. There we go. And our G-sprue. And let's take a look here. See all the little pieces. This is going to be like your little bits and bobs. Nice little bits and bobs sprue here. And it appears we have the breech. We have our breech block over here, and our breech, our guard for recoil guard. So this is basically, this is going to be part of your turret sprue. This is going to have all the bits and bobs for your turret, is what this appears to have on it. So, and we have some more side molded detail there. So, little side molded detail. Nice gear, nice rack system molded into that. So, nice floor texture here. So that is your G-sprue. Now, common to pretty much all the Panther kits that Takom makes. Rip the bag. So let's go back in these bags anyways. I'll rebag them. We have two sprues, the L and the M sprue, which are your little bits and pieces for the lower hull on this M sprue here. And this is always good to take a look at these pieces up here, because these are your control levers for the driver's compartment, and they look pretty good. Even these round pipes, they have a little bit of a parting line or mold seam on them, but not too bad. If you see my videos with my rotary tool, you know that that can be cleaned up very simply. So, nice little bits and bobs sprue for the lower hull. And then now we have the L sprue, which has most of your transmission on it. It also has some stowage, some fluid stowage in the back, some covers, part of your drivetrain, which is also on the M sprue, your rack for your batteries, parts of the transmission, your radiator fans, your heat ducting on the floor, and transmission pieces. So we'll take a look at this. We'll take a look at it like this first. Your L sprue. Now, people sometimes ask why I make these videos, because it's not actually building the kit and talking about fit issues and things like that. I do these as a reference so you can see the quality of the parts and the tininess, complexity, and things like that, so you can judge if it's something you want to get into. I do reviews of kits like these. I'm currently doing a King Tiger from Takom. I'm doing a review of their kit, and I'm going to be doing one of their Panther A's very shortly. Also going to be doing a plane and a boat in the near future. Now we have our J2 sprue and our F2 sprue. F2 has our final drive covers, some wire cutters. J2 is pretty much our tool sprue. has a significant bow in it. I don't know if you guys can see that. It has our tow cables. It also has our tools without tool clamps. It has 3 different jack options. And we have some pulleys and some different pieces. So it's nice to have different jack options based on the kit you want to build. And I'm going to touch on that towards the end of the video. Now we have a D2 sprue, which is going to be your rear engine cover, your cover for your ball mount, for your front bow machine gun, some more exhaust covers with some nice detail, and you can get references. There are 5 different exhaust types for the Panther A, depending on where it was built and the time it was built. So, there's different options and different things for that. You have your machine gun and your engine bulkheads, side compartment bulkheads. Now we're going to take a look at the C2 sprue. It's also good to record these videos, and as you can see, I show the sprue like so, and now I can go back when I actually build the kit, and I can see if I lost the piece in the cleaning process, the building process, or I lost it. It wasn't on the sprue. So we have some more exhaust options. We have an internal bulkhead, gun cleaning tubes, 2 different models, the lower hull with some Z pins on them to take care of that, some ejector pins. They're normally not seen. So, and another exhaust cover, of course, and then another type of the exhaust, front armor panel for right here. This is your C2, which is your lower hull. Now we're going to look at the P sprue. This looks like the turret floor, not the turret floor, but the lower section of the floor of the lower hull is what I'm going for. The floor the seats sit on, your support bars for your torsion bars that run laterally, front bulkhead, some tank storage, your fuel tanks, which are one piece, nicely side molded. So are these radiator louvers, vents, intakes, however you want to say it, and just various pieces. You have your radios on here. Not a command tank. This is not a command tank model, so you're gonna have to. It's not gonna have the radios in the turret or the extra antenna. So it's just strictly a 717 variant of the Panzer Division. And now we're going to look at some mantlets and some more of the outer turret and the barrel. This is your H sprue and your J sprue. This basically has your outer turret pieces, your different mantlets, binocular, monocular, so different covers with nice textures on them. If you can see the mantlet texture, they all have nice textures on them. Take a look at those. And then you have your barrel, which does have a mold line seam on it, which a 2-piece barrel would have it anyway, so I don't see the benefit. Just different machine guns here, different pieces of the turret. Your turret brace, so you have an open version and a closed version for locking the turret. And then we have the K-sprue, which is your commander's cupola, and some more turret pieces. The vision blocks for the cupola, the covers, and it looks like some grab bars and some super teeny tiny pieces, and another piece that's about to fall off. So this kit has been handled roughly. There is a nice texture on the cupola, so you can check that out. And now we're going to get to the tracks. Now these are link and length tracks, so some pieces are fully assembled. You can see there are no ejector pin marks on any of these tracks. They just have the 2 connection points, but unfortunately the guide horns are not attached, and they come on excuse me, this sprue here, and you cut them here, 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 and here, and then you take that whole solid piece and you would glue it this way, and after that glue is dried, you would cut off this area here and then clean up all the individual connection points. It is a little bit of a task. It is not, I would say, super duper fun, but they do make a nice track system. You can get aftermarket tracks. I tend to not worry about them, so I don't really have an issue. So I don't tend to worry about things like that. I enjoy the building process of the models. I don't worry about the time or the effort that goes into it. The more time, the better. I feel like I'm getting my money's worth. So here we have the R sprue. This is going to be your stowage bins and your stowage racks for your ammunition. Here are these are basically, you just have the heads of the ammunition and they stick out of these bins. And then you have your weapon racks on the sides. And then you have your Q sprue, which is your cross members on the floor, and some hoses, and your control arm assembly for the driver, all that good stuff. So there's your R sprue, and there is your Q sprue. And we have the N sprue, and then we just have the hull. So let's take a look at the N sprue here. There is the N sprue. This is your entire engine. This is the entire engine block, and it is it's basically in all your Panther kits. It's basically a kit in itself. I mean, this is your whole engine. I mean, some parts are on other sprues, but this basically builds your engine, and it turns out it's a good little build. It's a good little build in itself, the engine. Now let us take a look at the hull. And nice rolled texture on the turret. Come in a little bit so this shows up better. See that texture a little bit better. You can see the weld seams. See that texture a little bit better. There's your track jigs. Track jigs for making your tracks. And your upper hull with the nice rolled texture on it also. Weld seams and all that good stuff. So that is a look at the sprues. So I'm going to step away for a minute, and it's going to pop back on, and we're going to talk about, we're going to go through the instruction books, the decals, and all the little bits that are in this section with a little bit of photo etch, and I'm going to talk about building out the model. So, back in a minute. Alright, and we're back. Last we looked at the sprues and saw all the goodness of all that plastic, all that many sprues. Now we're going to look at the last bit of goodies, the instruction book here, and the stuff that comes in the bag. So you get the book, and then you get your photo etch. You have 7 pieces of photo etch there, some grills, and basically grills. It's good photo etch. I have no problem with it. I've built a few of these now, and I like it. You have an exhaust tube for your turret to exhaust all the smoke from the gun compartment. You have 2 tow cables, 2 different diameters, made out of copper, so that's nice. You have 3 different markings, so we'll get into that here shortly on what to do, on what to pick. And then you have your placards, basically, and then your ammunition, for all your ammunition shells, basic stuff for those. So you gotta be careful. I'll talk about that in a minute. Let's take a look at the book here, and I'm going to point out a couple things first in this one. I do a lot of these reviews and I try to mix them up. I want to go to first I want to go to the back here and show you the interior painting guide. And I want to let you know this is halfway through the book, right after you finish the lower hull. They put in this interior painting guide. It's ammo by MIG colors. But what it also does is it shows you where all your decals go. And you need to know what decals go on where ahead of time on this build, because you get to the point to where you have a lot of this built and you're not going to be able to get in there to add a decal later. So you want to get the decals on while you're able to get them on relatively easy. So I might do a video separate on decals, so we'll see how that goes. You got your painting in different colors, and then we have this section here. We have another decal, and then we have the ammunition, the decal on the ammunition. So there's 2 types of ammunition in the Panther A anyways. And they all get a decal on the shell, and they all get a decal on the tip, the ballistic part of the ammunition. So on a lot of parts of this, and I'll show you, you're going to need to paint these and put these decals on immediately, because once you try to glue them in, like on these racks, and even the decals on the tips of all these in the stowage, the vertical stowage for this ammunition, you'd be hard pressed to get the decals on once it's together. And that is a mistake I had made, is with the decals, if you're going to put that on there. And then it talks more about, the interior, and then you have the interior of the turret, which You're going to be doing this one here because this is the command. This is a command unit, command tank, and this one does not build the command tank. But you'd be doing this one here, preferably with a binocular scope, if I'm not mistaken. Let's see what kit number is this. Nope, this is the one you'll be doing right here, because this is your kit. 2098 is the kit number. So now let's take a look, now that I went over that. So I recommend you read through the manual, flip through it a couple times, especially if you're new to building models, and especially if this is your first full interior. I recommend flipping through it. We have some information here, talks about the different symbols and what they mean, and then again it talks about the paints required, and they are ammo by MIG. Now let's see if we can get this all in here. You have a sprue map, which is very nice to see. You can, the numbers are printed, but good luck trying to see that. So here we go with the start of the build. We have starting with the first part of the lower hull, and then we move into the transmission. Now the transmission on this is, there's a lot of play in these parts when you glue them together. So I recommend gluing them together, and while it's still kind of movable, fitting it to this lower section without gluing it, just so it sets in the right configuration to match the angle, and to make sure all the pins line up, and to make sure this back brace lines up. So that's just my recommendation on the transmission. And we're going to continue the lower hull. Here we have the torsion bars going in. The torsion bars are black, and the interior is a roto brawn and a cream-wise color. So you're going to have to do some painting there. With these torsion bars, it says to attach them to the side here. I wouldn't totally recommend that. I tend to put the torsion bars in first, and then put the side on, then use a pair of tweezers to insert them into the slots they go in. Just make sure they're oriented correctly when you slide them in into the middle section of the lower hull. Also, this control arm is a little iffy going in like this. I go ahead and I mount it to the transmission before I put any of the sides on. And then we have the suspension arms going on. It talks about aligning them with the jig to make sure they're all the same length. And then we have some final drive covers and the wheels. If you want the tracks to go on relatively easy, I recommend leaving this last wheel in this section right here off. And then the wheel will, the tracks will go on, and you just pop this wheel on at the end. It's recommended. It's actually a correction in other kits. And now we have some interior pieces going in, and here's the first example of the ammunition that's going to be on a rack buried in the floor. You're going to want to put your decals on this after this is painted and you install it. And you have your seats, 2 seats, your batteries, your instrument panel for the driver, and then you're going to start with some rear bulkheads. I recommend building all these sub-assemblies before putting them into the tank pretty far down, because nothing really locks onto each other for a little bit, and pretty far down. And then when you get to this section, you can start to put all this together all this back stuff together to make sure you have a square engine compartment. You want to make sure that is a perfect fit, because that engine's going to want to fit in there. So you're going to want to make sure there's no fit issues, there's no gaps. So I tend to wait to put, like, I have a Panther A. This is a Panther A, but a different version. And I have just this assembled, and I've actually moved up to where I assembled the engine. And I'm going to make sure that all my bulkheads and everything are perfectly square and good to go. Again, you have ammo racks that go in here. You can get photo etch upgrades for these from Edard. Here, again, these ammunitions are painted a different color than all the other parts of the racks, and they do get those small tiny red decals on the tips. So that would be very hard to put on and place in there. Also, this section here, like this R11, is a different color than the ammo around it. So it might be best to paint all this on the sprue and then kind of assemble it with the decals on it and things like that. And then you start to put it all together. Again, I wait. That's just my personal preference. I'm not a master builder or any kind of expert. I just find that when you have all these parts with tight tolerances, it's best to get them all in basically at one time. And then it jumps immediately from working on that interior to working on the tracks. You can really honestly do the tracks at any point. I wait till there's a down spot in the build, and then I work on the tracks. I do have some videos on the tracks on the channel. They're a little complicated. I talked about it when I showed the sprues. You have to attach the guide horns and then clean off the attachment points after it sets. And then you basically build it and go. It is built onto the drivetrain, the drive sprocket, and the idler wheel. You can separate them after they have dried in their position, but you gotta use the jig to put it back together, because if it's off a little bit, it's gonna be off on the tank. And I normally wait to the end for the tracks and the wheels. And now we come to the engine, which is a build in itself. And there's a couple points on the engine that I recommend waiting until after it's installed, like N11 here and N12. I have put them on this engine here, right here, this piece and this piece. I already regret it, because when I go to sit it in the two bulkhead positions, they need to line up with marks on the bulkheads, and it's going to be hard for me to do that now that the glue is set. So, but in my future builds, as of this one, I will remedy that situation. So, and then N59 and 58 are very thin. The glue dissolves them pretty quickly. I tend to make those out of leaded wire, and they're silver anyways. Well, they look good silver with a little black painted on them. So, and then you have some more of the engine, and then you have the engine placement. And now is a good time to start really placing all of the components inside of the lower hull. This is where I got to. I'm on it right here, and I'm starting to place all my pre-painted things into this lower hull. And then you got a little bit of ammo bags going in, and little pieces, details that you're gonna have to paint once they're in there, or pre-paint them before they go in. Like, I pre-paint all my ammo bags, and then I just glue them in with some super glue. So they tend to have a little bit of an issue. They don't really have much of a location. So then we have more racks of ammunition. And remember, they get individual decals, 2 on each. So, and then we're finishing up the lower hull, and we move back to the painting scheme. So let's just flip through that because we've studied that. And then now we have the rest of the engine compartments, and then we're now working on the rear of the tank. And remember, if you're doing Zimrit, that the stowage boxes would get the Zimrit. So, and then we're going to add the rear section to the lower hull, and then we immediately set that aside and we start on the upper hull section. Now, this is another recommendation I have as for the upper hull. It has you immediately making these 2 pieces and gluing them in. I don't recommend that right away. You can glue this in, and then I would make up the engine door, and then these louver pieces for our vent pieces that cover the louvers that feed the radiator system. I would build all this, build this, and then fit all this together so you can make sure it's all nice and square. That's just my recommendation. Then you have your tools going on. Remember, you can take off the tool clamps if you're not happy with those, and add a third party photo etch clamps. We have different builds here, different pieces. Then we have the bow machine gun. Then we have the radios, all going on to the upper hull. And then basically we're mating the upper hull to the lower hull. And then we're going to add the side skirts, which I'm trying to find a way to modify them to remove a section. And then we're going to add the towing bar mount on the bottom. And then we are going to move on to the turret. I really don't have much to say about the turret. The turrets I've built on the A's seem to go together well. You can build them so there's a little bit of movement in, like this door, say. You can open and close. You can have the optional anti-aircraft machine gun on top of the commander's cupola. There's your traverse system. Now we're working on the mantlet. Now it does come with 3 different mantlet options in the kit. We'll get to finding a reference for which one to use. It says to use H6, but depending on your model and stuff, you could pick a different one. And then we have some more sections going together. The lower the turret basket, the lower the floor. Now we have the barrel, that exhaust hose that I showed you, and then the commander's cupola's hatch cover, and then finally the final assembly of the tank. And then we have our paint schemes here. We have those 2, and then that is the 435 and the 425, and then we have the 211, which is a little bit bigger and nicer. There you got 44, 44, and Poland 44. So these are all definitely mid-early. So you have your mid-early production here. No advertisement. That's strange. So that's the Panther A mid-early book. And now once you have a kit and you're ready to build it out, I recommend getting a book of reference material. I have this Panther tank book. I have a few others that show me different interior bits, but this is great when you're trying to, like, if you have a year of a tank that you want to build. Like, I have the A's marked off in here, and if you it talks about the A's, when they were built, and then what plants they could have come from, and then all the identifying features, and when stuff was added and removed, so then you can actually narrow down to a year your tank was manufactured, and you can add the correct exhaust configuration, and then, you know, everything matches up. The crew compartment heater doesn't come on these kits, so it's something you could scratch build or things like that. So this is basically just a basic Panther A from the mid to early. So you look at all the 44s here, and then you would have the information you need. Highly recommend this if you're going to build Panther tanks. I build a lot of Panther tanks. It's one of my favorite tanks. And you know, we have Panther Tank Sunday on Sundays, and we also do some Tiger tanks. We have Tiger Tank Saturday. We run a building technique series on Wednesdays. We're going to be working on ships on Thursdays, and all kinds of good stuff on the channel. I try to upload most days. Some days there are live streams of content where you can give me questions, and I do something called Feedback Friday, where I respond to all your information. To get me information, you can leave a comment in the comments below. You can email me at crazygamermodels@gmail.com. So that address is in the description. You can also visit me on Instagram at crazygamermodels, one word. And you can, if you so choose, you can visit my Patreon page, where you will see 2 tool reviews first on there. So that's going to do it for looking at this Panther A mid-late kit from Takom, kit number 2098. I hope you enjoyed this in-depth look at what's inside the box and some basic building instructions and the tips that I provided. So thank you very much for sticking to the end of this video, and I hope you all have a great day.